Missed an episode of your favorite podcast? Choose from over a decade of content in our archives, not just the latest episode. All free at GCNlive.com.
This is your call to action. Get prepared, America. Economy, survival, energy, disasters. This is USAPrepares.com. Informative radio, educational radio. Interact now by emailing instructor@USAPrepares.com or text at 434-390-7953. Class, please take your seats. Now, your instructor, Vincent Finelli.
Everyone all set, cocked, locked? Here we go. Your dial set correctly to USA Prepares. Thank you for being in class today. We are connecting with Guineith Isaacs in Australia. In the meantime, I'd like to tell you a little bit about what's going on here in our neck of the woods in the corrupt state of Missouri. Well, as you may have heard, I decided to run again for the board of directors of Laclede Electric Cooperative. It's a touchstone energy corporation. Laclede, Laclede, Electric Cooperative. So there are about 27,000 members in Laclede Electric Cooperative, and it is a membership-owned corporation. And Laclede does not generate electricity. Laclede is in the distribution business. That would mean power poles, transformers, electric lines, bringing service to your house. Those are the guys that put meters on your house. Okay? Those are the guys who decide how much a meter should cost. I got a big problem with Laclede Electric Cooperative because of some of the policies and their non-stop rate increases. And it's run by a guy. His name is Mark Rocker, and he spells his name Roecker. He's the CEO and the general manager. His office is in Lebanon, Missouri. And welcome, Guineith.
Hello, Vincent. How are you this morning?
Well, I'm really well. I started to tell the class about how I'm running for the fourth time for the board of directors. And since I started this, we didn't have you connected at the beginning of the broadcast. So I'd like to finish this, and then we'll get into permaculture. Is that okay with you?
Yeah, that's great.
Okay. So Guineith is no stranger to adversity. Okay. The system tries to attack her every way they can. And I'm just going to be talking a little bit about how the system is not fair, okay? And what's wrong with America. And we're going to focus our lens on Laclede Electric Cooperative. The class, you may think, why does this have to do with preparedness? Because this is happening in your village too. No doubt in my mind. And by the way, all the things that I'm saying are my opinion, okay? So when Laclede and I go to court about this, they will have heard that these are my opinions. So Mark Rocker, Roecker, has asked me to be in the boardroom a couple times over the last few years, and I've met with him for hours and hours. He's trying to figure out who I am. Well, what I did was I wanted to make some changes to the cooperative, and the only way I can have any influence is to become a member of the board of directors and sit around that table and fight with those guys and gal who are trying to do things like raise our electric rates and make electricity more unaffordable. Okay? And I don't want them making mistakes. I don't want them wasting money. So I'm not out to punish the little people who work for Laclede. In fact, I am in favor of the little people. But I have a problem with the board of directors. And I think I have a problem with the CEO, too. He's an accountant. Let me say it a different way. He's an accountant. Now, if you look at what's happened to Sears Roebuck and Company, well, some accountants have destroyed Sears Roebuck and Company. How have they done it? They forgot about the customer. Okay? They forgot about what their business model was. They work for the shareholders who are interested in profit. they work for the CEO who's interested in profit. All right, well, so here's what I did. In order to become eligible to be voted on for the board of directors, you have to be nominated by a nominating committee. The nominating committee is a group of people who are selected by the board of directors. So you have the board of directors saying, okay, we're going to get some people to run against us because we're all running for re-election year after year after year. One guy's been on there over 40 years, over 40 years, okay, one board member. So they're going to look for people to run against these people. So who are they going to find who's a friend of theirs, who's going to find someone to get them unseated? The nominating committee finds people like Walmart clerks. Am I kidding? No, I'm not kidding. They found a Walmart clerk to run on the board of directors of one of the largest corporations in this area, the electric cooperative. Everyone is touched by this electric cooperative in this area. If you want electricity, you are touched by them. You will pay them whatever they say you will pay, or they will disconnect your electricity. Okay. So I ran unsuccessfully 3 times. And I'm learning a lot about how this works. And that's why I'm sharing it with you, because you won't believe it. You will not believe what I'm about to tell you. So in the bylaws, which I have in front of me, which were handed to me by the CEO, Mark Rocker, it says, Section 5, nominations. It shall be the duty of the board of directors to appoint a committee on nominations, consisting of not less than 5 nor more than 11 members, who shall be selected from each of the districts of the project area to ensure equitable representation. No member of the board of directors may serve on such committee. The committee, keeping in mind the principle of geographic representation, shall prepare and post at the principal office of the cooperative at least 60 days before the meeting a list of nominations for directors. But any 15 or more members acting together may make other nominations by petition not less than 45 days prior to the meeting, and the secretary shall post such nominations at the same place where the list of nominations made by the committee is posted. Let me say that again. 15 or more members acting together may make other nominations by petition not less than 45 days prior to the meeting. Okay? That's where this discussion comes in. So I figured that I ran 3 times. I'll run again. I'll run for the 4th time. Not that I plan on winning. It's just that I plan on running. So I sent in my petition, bona fide petition, with the that meets the requirements, and I get back this following email from the CEO. Now, I'm going to read what I sent to him first. Okay? I said, Mark, and I call him Mark. He calls me Mr. Finelli because he wants to keep his distance, I believe. Mark, I'm all excited about the 2019 annual meeting. I sent you a fax of those supporting me. 1 set is prior to the annual meeting, and 1 set is post-meeting. What I mean by that is I sent him 2 sets of petitions. 1 before the meeting, the last meeting, where I was not selected to be on the board, and 1 after the annual meeting. Okay? The annual meeting was in August. I sent you a fax of those supporting me. 1 set prior to the annual meeting, 1 set is post-meeting. Please confirm the receipt of the signatures and that they meet the 15-member requirement. I'm looking forward to running again for the 4th time. Since the nominating committee has so much difficulty finding candidates, I suspect that you'll want to forward my intentions to them. Would you like to come on air with me and discuss how this election system works? Thank you for your help, Vincent Finelli. I get back the following response from Mark Rocker. I will review Laclede Electric Cooperative's bylaws for intent to determine if this early submittal of petition signatures for next year's annual meeting meets the intent of the bylaws. I respond.
What does that even mean?
I'll tell you what that means in a second. What he's saying is, okay, what he's saying, and these are my words, not his. What he's saying is, I don't know what the board meant by the signatures must be in not less than 45 days prior to the meeting. I got mine in way before 45 days. And he's saying, well, you got them in early. He's saying you got them in early, and we'll see what the board intends. Now, the board has an enormous problem with me. They don't have a problem with any of the other people who are running for the board because they're selected, most of them, by the nominating committee that's selected by the board. So I'm not selected by the board. I'm like Donald Trump. I'm not part of the system. The last thing they want is me on the board. And they've told me. They've told me publicly at the meeting. They say, we don't want any disruption in the board. It's kind of working smoothly now. And what they're saying is, Finelli will disrupt the board. That's what they said. And they have a tape of this. They've got the audio and the video of the board member saying it. Anyway, so I sent Mark Rocker, the CEO, this email. Mark, fortunately, there is no mention of that. And it would be unfortunate if the board decides to make changes. I would challenge any changes the board made to existing bylaws that make it more difficult to run for the board. I'm sure that you agree. Thank you, Vincent Finelli. Okay? And then I get a response from Mark Rocker. Mr. Finelli, calls me Mr. Finelli. I will review the questions with the board at the next board meeting and reply to you. Thanks, Mark Rocker. Now, the word thanks...
Gosh, it looks as though they might want to change the Constitution.
That's exactly what they're going to do. They're going to figure out how they can change the bylaws. Now, so then I respond to him with the following. Mark, I've complied with the bylaws in which there is no mention of a no sooner than date for petitions. I expect my petition will be verified with the membership database promptly, and I am awaiting that verification. Your meeting with the board about my petition, challenging the board, is one of moving the goalposts. It is worthy of investigative journalism for starters. I've already faced off on stage with your attorney. I'm looking forward to seeing him again. Although Director Mr. Randy Little said that he and I cannot work together, I think you and I can. Thank you, Vincent Finelli. What I'm saying, class, is I believe they are changing the goalposts in their favor. That's what they're going to try to do, in my opinion. And it's an outrage. Okay, I've studied accounting at the university. I have a couple degrees in finance and economics. So I spent time in class and, I did the required work to learn about accounting. And I think that accountants are instrumental in the destruction of the American way. And here's just one other example. Okay? And it relates to Laclede Electric, that is run by a CEO who is an accountant. He'll tell you he's an accountant. That means, to me, that he doesn't climb power poles. He doesn't wire transformers. He didn't do that stuff. He does numbers. Okay, so let's talk about auto parts stores in our area. We buy a lot of auto parts, okay, because we're a farm and we fix a lot of vehicles. We buy brakes, brake discs, brake lines, transmission parts, spark plugs, gaskets, camshafts, valve lifters, starters, alternators, climate controls, electronics, oil, lubricants, the list goes on and on and on. As a matter of fact, one time when we bought engine oil, we bought every gallon of DELO, D-E-L-O, and Delvac engine oil that one of these automotive chains had. Every gallon. It was about $1,100 worth of, just 15W40 diesel engine oil. So when we buy, we make it easy on them. We don't run them ragged, and we spend a lot of money on these things. So we would get discounts based on volume. Okay? We are mechanics. So we do. We run a farm. We do our own work. We have a lift, as you all know. And we expect that we're going to pay less for what we buy than a guy who buys 1 spark plug or 8 spark plugs or 4 spark plugs once in a while. because we are regulars. Well, we have learned, and they've trained us this way, that they are no longer loyal to us. So one auto parts store fired they say he quit, the manager, who was good. He was an excellent guy. He knew auto parts. Had been there for years. And they got rid of him. They got rid of the assistant managers. And one day we went in, and they're all new faces. I said, wow, all new faces. So the new store manager came up to me, and she said, hi, I'm the store manager. I'm the new store manager. I said, oh. So I cut right to the chase. How long have you been in the auto parts business? She said, well, that's not why I'm here. I'm here because of my past experience as an accountant. I said, oh, man. I told her I didn't think this was a good thing. Right to her face. In different words, but that's what I said. And since she's been a manager, they've been moving the goalposts. They would come out and deliver, and then we would have vehicles lined up to work on, and they would have deliveries twice a day, and if you called before a certain time, you would meet the morning delivery or the afternoon delivery. And we would call, and they would deliver, and all of a sudden, they stopped delivering. Cars are lined up. We're trying to work on them. Why? Well, we call and say, you guys coming? Well, no, we're not coming. Why is that? Well, we don't have enough business to warrant coming out. So were you going to call us? Oh, we didn't call you? Yeah, what I'm saying is that's what accountants do. That's the stuff that they do that damages the reputation. And then the customers say, I'll go find somebody else. So are we loyal to them anymore? Of course not. So what do? We go buy our parts wherever they're the least expensive for the best parts. Okay? We buy the parts we can at the lowest cost to us. Are we loyal? No. Are we going to be loyal? No. Why not? Because they're not loyal to us. Sears, Roebuck and Company used to be satisfaction guaranteed your money back. And now you got to fight with them to get something exchanged. They're no longer the same company. Why? The accountants took over, in my opinion. The accountants have destroyed Sears. So I don't go to Sears. Why would I want to go to Sears? The only thing that Sears has is maybe they'll exchange a broken tool that had a lifetime guarantee when I bought it, 20, 30 years ago. And that's why I bought it, because it had a lifetime guarantee. But what Sears has done is they've stopped making a lot of those tools that they used to have. So you bring in a wrench that weighs, let's say, 7 ounces, and you say, I'd like to exchange this because it broke. And they say, oh, we don't have that model anymore. But we have one that weighs 4 ounces. That's the kind of stuff they do. That's Sears. And is Sears moving the goalposts any different from Laclede Electric Cooperative? It's doing everything in their power to prevent me from being a director? No. And how much time did they give me on stage to make my case? 2 minutes. Mark Rocker, you need to be fired, along with your top management and the directors. All of you need to be fired. And I'm going to do everything I can to make it happen. And I'm going to send you a copy of this. So, class, am I angry? Of course I'm angry. I'm watching the free fall of the United States of America right in front of our eyes. I'm watching the manipulation. I'm watching the moving of the goalposts. I'm watching the changing of the rules. And I think it's time that we listen to Hillary Clinton. I actually said that. Why? Because she said American democracy is in crisis. Our democratic institutions and traditions are under siege. Well, she's right. Our traditions are under siege. Our rules are under siege. Our educational institutions are under siege. And then she goes on to say we need to do everything we can to fight back. Now, my understanding was that we had a representative republic, not a democracy. But what I'm saying is Hillary Clinton is right in that our traditions are under siege, and she says we need to do everything we can to fight back. Those are her words, not my words, her words. Guineith, I'd love to hear your comments before we get into permaculture. Do you have any comments about what I've said?
Okay, yeah. I would say that they're operating a racketeering scam. I would say that this is definitely antitrust behaviour. That's it in a nutshell. And I think that if it ended up in the courts, as an antitrust case. I'm not a lawyer, but I've fought my share of self-represented lawsuits, and I would say this is definitely antitrust. Racketeering, cartel behavior.
I'm thinking of a class action suit against the board of directors and the CEO and the top management because they're all in this together. They all are working in concert to the detriment, I believe, of the membership. Because I believe they can save money. I believe they can. They've got these directors who get on stage and they say things like, well, this is hard work. I'm learning a lot. I'm learning how to read financial statements. Really? If you don't know how to read a financial statement, you have no business being on the board of directors. And you have to learn a lot. You have no business being on the board of directors. A board of directors should be men and women who are knowledgeable in the area of the corporation that they are on the board of. USA Prepares. Do you think I'm going to go out on the street and find these, those, and them guys to help me run the company? Are you kidding? Of course not. I'd want people smarter and more knowledgeable than I am. Not less. It's
disgusting. And like I say, they're actually holding the community to hostage. Okay?
Absolutely.
Which is classical cartel behavior. They're saying, we are going to have a monopoly on this resource. And by the way, these are all words that you should definitely include in your brief. Antitrust, monopoly, cartel, racketeering. Okay? Because those are all words that describe their behavior. And they're all words that describe criminal activity on the part of the Laclede so-called board of directors. And they are not going to allow anybody else other than the members of their little club into the board. And they, I believe, are rigging the elections. Of course, proving it is going to be another matter. But are you kidding me? After 40 years, they don't know how to read a financial statement. What have they been doing sitting on the board for 40 years, some of them? I mean, what's the average length that the board members have been sitting on the board?
Well, some of them have been on the board for, 40 years, 18 years, those kinds of numbers, big numbers.
And they don't know how to read a financial statement after 18 years.
I'm not saying they don't. I'm saying that they talk about on stage that they are learning a lot, and they're learning. They're learning. It's a wonderful experience. They're learning how to do these things. And if I were the membership watching people say that, I'd say, you got to be kidding me. And so how much does it cost for these guys to learn? Well, about $250,000 a year to teach them, to shuttle them around, to pay for their 3/4 of their medical insurance, to pay for all of their dental insurance, to pay for, these training sessions they go on, and to compensate them. That's what they get. So what I've done is I've said, I'll do it for free. I don't need to be compensated. I'll do it for free. If the other guys do. And they were silent.
Their learning experience has cost $250,000 a year.
Yeah.
If I'd been doing something for 18 years, I'd have it down pat. It would no longer be a learning experience.
Right. Yeah. Well, Guineith, so to follow in what Hillary Clinton advised, we need to do everything we can to fight back. Have you ever been on a road rally? That's where it's where a bunch of people get in cars. Usually 2 people per car. Typically, these were common in the 1970s. And there'd be 2 people in, let's say, a Morris's Garage car, which would be an MG, or a Triumph, or, whatever car. It didn't matter. It could be a land yacht, for example. The size of the car had nothing to do with it. But you'd have a stopwatch, and you'd have a resettable trip odometer. And have you ever been in one of those? It's a time distance road rally.
My dad actually did have an MGY. Okay, it was an absolute beautiful car. There were only about 9 of them of this make, model, and year in the world, and he had restored it completely, and it was just a prize-winning, absolutely beautiful car. And we used to go on vintage car club rallies once or twice a month, and we had a lot of fun. And that was for many years. My dad was involved in the vintage car club because he was a master engineer, and including automotive engineer. And he used to, as a part of his work, he used to do automotive engineering work for a famous rally car driver by the name of Possum Vaughan. I don't know if you've ever heard of him. I don't know if he raced in the Northern Hemisphere, but in the Southern Hemisphere, he in the rally car circuit. This is talking about, racing rally circuit. Possum Vaughan is just positively famous, or was. He's deceased now. He died in a motor accident. But Dad was very good friends with him. And, so we used to go on vintage car club rallies once or twice a month, and it was a lot of fun. And we'd have fun type questions that we had to answer, like count the number of telephone poles between this intersection and the creek, and you'd have to count them, and then, you'd have a line of cars all lined up counting the telephone poles. Is that the sort of thing you're talking about?
Yes, it is, and let me give you an example. So, class, a road rally is a time-distance event. For example, let me give you some instructions. So, at the appointed time, like on a Saturday morning, all the cars arrive and they register, and they get a number affixed to their vehicle. Let's say first vehicle is number 1, second vehicle to register would be number 2, and these numbers would be affixed to the side of the car in a specific location. Let's say the passenger side window, okay? And it could be read from a distance of 100 feet easily. Okay, so every car gets one of these, and that identifies the car. And everyone is given a set of instructions as to how to participate in this rally and what they do. And it's time and distance. It's not a race. Okay, if you arrive at the end point too early, there are points subtracted. If you get there too late, points subtracted. If you don't get there, obviously you don't win. And the way it would go would be something like this. And the cars would leave at 1-minute intervals out of the parking lot. So let's say there's 200 cars. So at 1-minute intervals, they leave the parking lot. And the first direction might be something like this. Turn left out of the parking lot. Next direction. Maintain legal speed limit. Maintain legal speed. Next direction. Turn right at the first traffic light. Next direction. Continue 0.4 of a mile, then turn left. Next direction. Continue for 45 seconds at the legal speed limit. Next direction. At yellow sign, pull over and wait 30 seconds. Point of interest. That is the mayor's house, number 123 Easy Street. Honk the horn twice. Next direction. Continue straight for 1/2 mile. Pull over at 567 Easy Street. Point of interest. Beep the horn twice. Point of interest. That White House is the house of the CEO of whatever corporation. That would be a road rally. Okay? Now, honk the horn twice. That's so that the spotters, the officials, can make sure that you have adhered to the instructions of the road rally. If you don't honk twice, you get points off. They watch you at the different checkpoints along the road, along the route, to make sure that you follow the instructions. And then you arrive at the destination.
I remember all of this.
Yeah. And I'm thinking,
it was very, very interesting.
Okay, so why am I talking about this? Well, Hillary Clinton said, quote, we need to do everything, we need to do everything we can to fight back. Well, here's how you can have a road rally and fight back. Okay? Why? Because if you have 200 cars stopping in front of the mayor's house, identifying, well, I guess you guys didn't know, but now that you've been in the rally, you know that that house on 123 Easy Street is the mayor's house. Honk twice.
And he'll have 200 people outside his door honking their horn.
Yeah. Yeah. On average,
that's a marvelous idea.
On the average, once every minute. Every minute for 200 minutes. We'll be right back.
That's a fantastic idea.
You know, class, generally speaking, mayors don't want you to know where they live. Okay? Neither do the CEOs of corporation. Neither do politicians. Now, is having one of these road rallies legal? Absolutely. Okay. Nowhere and did we say when you have a road rally, you pull into some guy's driveway, honk the horn twice, and then back out. No. You have to stay on the road. Road rallies are on the road, not in private property. Okay. Except for maybe the parking lot where you start and end the road rally, but you have to have permission in order to do that. So, how do you find out where people live? Well, if you really want to find out where people live and you can't figure it out, you file to run for office, okay? And then you're entitled to the voters list with names and addresses for those registered voters for that particular party. So if you want to be if you want to find out about Republicans, you file to run for an office as a Republican or a Democrat. Or if you really want to know, because you want to make sure you get everybody, what you do is you run and you have someone else run for the other party. So one of you runs for Republican, the other runs for Democrat. It's as simple as that. Then you say you want the list. Now, you may have to pay for the list. They may charge you, $15 for the list, and they'll print it out for you. There you go. Just wanted to share with you that. Guineith, any comments before we talk about permaculture?
Okay. I think that the idea of the motor rally is simply marvelous. Because, hey, you just, you really, really like the mayor.
Absolutely.
And you just want to point out to everybody where he lives and get them to show their appreciation.
Yeah, maybe wave, maybe put your arm out, as you're parked in front of his house for like 30 seconds.
I think tooting the horn twice is a marvelous idea. And
well, you have to do it.
That's how these rallies run.
Yeah.
Because they have, I think that they're called judges or scrutineers located around the course just to make sure that people don't take shortcuts.
That's
right. They have time points.
That's right.
And they have time points. And you're generally required to stop at a time point, often for a certain amount of time. Mm-hmm. And you often are required to do something like toot your horn or flash your lights or get up and walk around the car 3 times.
That's right.
I think that tooting the horn twice is a marvelous idea. Or one on blast.
Well, yes. You do it to make sure that the officials. Yeah, you do it according to the rules and of the road rally or the instructions, and the idea is to make sure that you comply. Nothing in the road rally is designed to break the law. Nothing says accelerate at a fast pace. Nothing says burn out. Spin your tires, make smoke. None of that. It's when you participate in a road rally, you drive safely, you obey the rules of the road, and now sometimes if you're on a long stretch that may be half a mile or so, you may get someone in front of you that's going slowly. So it is the navigator's job in the passenger seat to account for the delay of the people in front of you. Like, this guy's costing us 5 seconds, 6 seconds, 8 seconds. Then you have to make up for that. But you've got, a long time to make up for it. So you don't have to do it really quickly. but you do have to obey the traffic laws, and any violation of the traffic laws can get you disqualified. So no one is advocating breaking the law. And there are times, let's say you're in a 40-mile-per-hour speed limit area, and the instructions may say travel at 32 miles an hour. And the idea is that will give you time to make up for the lost time for traffic in a prior instruction. So it's really a cool thing to do. In class, I suggest that you consider having road rallies in your clubs, your garden club or whatever it may be, and, find those points of interest in your neck of the woods. And I'll tell you what, that may go a long way in taking our country back, okay, and stopping this insanity. Yep. And it's a lot of fun. It really is.
It is.
It's an enormous amount of fun. So, Guineith, what are we going to talk about when we come back? We have 10 seconds.
Permaculture.
Permaculture. Okay. Another way of fighting back. Another way of fighting back.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. We'll be right back. Guineith Isaacs live. Everyone all set? Cocked? Locked? Hour number 2 of USA Prepares. Just doing as we're told. Hillary Clinton said we need to fight back, so we're trying our best to oblige. This hour we're going to be talking about permaculture, another way of fighting back the high cost of food, fighting back the chemicals that are in our food, growing our own so we know what we have grown, what we've put in it, and making it the best for nutrition for our survival. Guineith, I'm looking forward to hearing about this permaculture.
Okay, I would have sent you a couple of videos earlier. I don't know if you had time to watch them.
I did.
But it wasn't it amazing? It was talking about a project called the Greening the Desert Project, which is a project that's run directly by the founding organisation of Permaculture. In Australia, it's actually an Australian technology, agricultural technology, but it's gone all over the world. And what they did was they took 10 acres of land, just a few kilometres from the Dead Sea, okay, actually in the district. The district's name is called Sodom. And for any Bible scholars out there, yes, it is that Sodom. It's actually the district where the ancient ruins of the city of Sodom were found. The soil is highly acidic. In parts, it's basically pure monatomic sulfur. It is highly saline soil as well, okay? And it's 400 meters below sea level. And the annual rainfall is 200 millimeters, which is less than 14 inches. So, no, not even that. So less than 5 inches of rainfall a year. And yet they have managed to create, using permaculture there, a lush oasis of just any sort of fruit that you could tropical fruits that you could possibly imagine. Dates, and figs, and grapes, and olives, and, that they are moving actually towards each household that adopts this form of farming. They generally manage to become self-sufficient in food. Even if they don't become completely self-sufficient, because it's, of course you need more land area to produce things like meat. They're generally able to produce 80 or 90% of their own food, even in such a harsh climate as basically the Dead Sea area, which is one of the driest, most inhospitable deserts on Earth where human beings actually live. There's other deserts that are possibly even drier, but humans don't live there, or not many humans live there. But you would have seen in the video, the population density in that area is actually pretty high, isn't it, Vincent?
Yeah. Yeah, and actually, when you said humans don't live there, or not many, I was thinking, boy, except for the environment, that would be delightful. We'd be away from these corrupt CEOs. We'd be away from these politicians. We'd be away from taxes and enforcement. Wouldn't that be wonderful? Yeah.
Yeah, but in this area, there's actually a huge population density.
Oh.
The permaculture, one of the gardens that was displayed was next to a school, and that school would have had at least 400 students in it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah. And, and the students were coming across. The lady who has that garden, she would give each child that came across who was interested in the garden, she would give them their own little garden bed to look after. And they would go and they would grow eggplants, tomatoes, capsicums, chilies, and whatever they wanted to grow. And she would provide them with some seeds, and she would show them how to plant them. This is how we need to rearrange our lives, to basically so that this evil system has no need and no toehold to be able to say to us, well, you've got to do what we say. We need to generate our own electricity. We need to have our own water supplies. We need to have our own sewage treatment. We need to learn how, and our own food supply. We need to learn how to do all of these things ourselves, and also our own income sources that are independent as much as possible from them, because they are an evil cartel. They really are, and oh my gosh, it's just the only way that we can defeat them, or one of the only ways that we can defeat them, is by setting up our own systems and going that way.
Well, to give a mental picture for our class, is think of a large garden, very large garden, long rows. And each student has a section of a row, a portion of a row. So we're talking about young students. We're not talking about, seniors in high school. We're talking about young students, elementary school, where the students are actually maintaining their garden. And I don't know if it was set up exactly this way, but to me, there is a competition involved where one student would say, wow, yours is doing a little bit better than mine. What's going on? What did you do differently? How did you do that? And so now not only do you have a competitive spirit, but you have learning as to why. And the students are watching this day by day, and they can see the result of their changes. That is absolutely brilliant. That's so much better than the way we do it in the United States, where we say, click your mouse on this picture of a garden. This is what a garden looks like. Next topic. Okay.
So maybe if you've done 5 hours of preliminary classes in front of a computer, then we'll get you out into the garden and you can actually get your hands dirty planting stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there's nothing like doing it. And class, if you think that having seeds in a packet stored somewhere in the basement is going to get you through when the lights go out, it's going to take a long time for those seeds to germinate. And then you're going to have to produce, fruit or produce. And it's going to take even longer. So bear in mind that seeds are great, but you need to have the experience on how to plant them, how to nurture them, how to encourage them to be their best, what not to do, what to do. And that's what we're talking about. You've got to do it. And you know what? I was thinking last night, I was dreaming, and I was thinking, I would like to raise tomatoes in the house over the winter. Why not?
Yeah.
Why can't I do that? Why can't I take a bucket, put some soil in it, bring that bucket inside, put it in a sunny window, and try and see if I can get enough light to raise tomatoes in the house so that I can stagger the planting of the tomatoes so I can have non-stop fresh tomatoes all year long.
That would work.
Outside, yeah.
Tomatoes actually do well inside during the winter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that's the plan.
Yeah, no, it sounds like a wonderful idea. And the thing with permaculture is you make every part of the garden work with some other part of the garden to provide a benefit for everything. Like, for instance, I'm not certified in permaculture, but I think I've learnt enough over the years to do it on my own property, so I'm not qualified to teach it. But I've been getting pretty good, and that's on the bucket list one day, is to get my permaculture certification and to start to teach people, because it is actually a copyrighted name, and they do have, a certification system. But you can do it at home on your own, and in fact they encourage you to read books about it and set up your own garden as a permaculture garden, because their primary interest is to get people out there doing it, and basically they have a saying, changing the world one garden at a time. That's their saying, and I like it. I like it a lot. And in my permaculture garden, I have the chicken pen. We have to have every garden here food producing, or most of them. Now that we have the dog patrol, they keep the kangaroos away from a lot of the garden areas. We have our gardens mostly made in bathtubs and old refrigerators as raised beds. But the original garden, before we got the dog patrol adequately recruited, had 6-foot-high fences, wire fences, chicken mesh fences around it. And they are next to the chicken pen. So when I do the weeding in the garden, I sort out the weeds as I'm weeding into poisonous weeds and non-poisonous weeds. The poisonous weeds get mulched, the non-poisonous weeds get thrown over the fence at the end of the gardening session on my way out and into the chicken pen. And that provides the chickens with their greens. And because we have quite a high fox population, because we live in a eucalyptus forest, there are fox dens out there, so we can't let our chickens free range. They have to stay inside there. Rather generous. The chicken house actually looks like it was the original house that was built on this land. It's actually a house, a small mud brick house, probably about
quite generous
120 square foot house.
Yep, we'll be right back. We'll be right back. Gwyneth is talking about permaculture, and yes, you can fight back and you can drive down your food costs, but it's going to take some work. And what she's talking about is the synergy among chickens, farm animals, and the products you want to grow on your farm, the produce you want to raise in your garden, putting it all together and having it work as a unit. Please continue.
Okay. Another example of this is, especially in a hot climate, a big problem with growing vegetables can be direct sunlight. And especially in the middle of summer, the sun can, we can have weeks and weeks and weeks on end where the daytime temperature is over 45 degrees or over 40 degrees Celsius every single day, and often getting up to 45 degrees. And that's really, really, really hard on the garden. And it's about finding methods to keep the humidity in the soil and to stop too much direct sunlight. from hitting the leaves and making them wilt. And an example of how you can do that, you can put shade cloth across, of course. That's great. But a longer-term solution is to actually grow fruit trees here and there in your vegetable garden. And I have raised beds, and what I do in my garden is the drainage overflow from the raised beds. I plant fruit trees and other productive trees and bushes on the overflows of the garden beds. Okay, so you put your irrigation water into the garden bed, it gets up to a certain level, and it overflows. And one thing that you may have noticed in the video that I sent you, Vincent, that when they've got raised beds in these in this permaculture garden, because it's a very hot, arid, dry climate, they have the overflow just a couple of inches below the soil surface. I don't know if you noticed that, but that's how I run my gardens here, and it absolutely works. I don't know that it would really work in a climate where you had a lot of rain, but here it certainly works, and I can see why they did it. Why they did it that way where they are with the harsh climate that they have there. But you grow fruit trees, and the fruit trees produce fruit. You like, for instance, depending on your climate, apples or pears, peaches, plums, things like olives, and just name any fruit tree. They all need water to get established. And instead of having a separate watering for the fruit tree and for the garden beds, you let the fruit trees get watered from the overflow that comes from your garden bed. And the thing about this overflow is it has nutrients in it that from the compost that you put on the garden. Some nutrients are going to go away with the overflow water, and that can't be helped. But if they're going straight onto a fruit tree, they're not being wasted. And this is a way of making the system work together, okay? And so much of it is just common sense. You divide your property into zones, okay? So you have zone 0, which is inside your house, and then you have that, like, in a cold climate, that's where you would be planting your tomatoes, and you could even grow things like cucumbers and zucchinis in your house as well. I don't know if you've thought of that, but they tend to do quite well in hothouse situations or indoors during the winter if they're in a sunny spot.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so you might want to try that as well.
And can we talk about the use of tires, old tires, in a permaculture garden? Is that something that you like the idea of? Talk about that when we come back.
Yeah, that would be good.
Quick message, class. Mike Ma will be available if you want him to be. We're looking for about 25 people to come to Springfield, Missouri on October 26th. About 4 hours. Okay, it'll be an evening presentation, meet and greet. Mike Ma will talk about how to establish your three-man militia, how to expand it, and how to teach and spread the learning of skills. Kind of like having a three-man militia for gardening, like Guineith and I are talking about today with permaculture, learning the skills, sharing. And then it'll be a dinner meeting, and it will include self-defense and a grid down situation. What do you do? What do you do? And here's how it'll go. When you come in, you'll be asked to write down one question. And so think about your question in advance. What is the one question you want answered by Mike Ma during this presentation? All those questions will be put in a pile and they will be answered without identifying who asked the question. Okay? So it'll be about problem solving, building relationships, the three-man militia, how it works. And we're not talking about invading anybody. We're talking about three guys, gals getting together, guys and gals getting together to learn how to do lots of things, auto mechanics, carpentry, how to build the skill set for your village so that you will survive the grid down situation. Now, if you are interested, please send me an email. Instructor@usaprepares.com. Instructor@usaprepares.com. We need about a minimum of 10 people to 25. So it'll be a small group. It will be dinner, and it will be probably something that you will remember for the rest of your life. So if you're interested, please let me know. Instructor@usaprepares.com. Guineith, tires. So we have a tire changing machine, and we've got lots of tires. And what we do is we take a Sawzall, one of those reciprocating saws. Sometimes they're called, Milwaukee Sawzalls. DeWalt makes them. Lots of companies make them. And you cut out the sidewall, and then you're left with just the tread in a kind of like a very short cylinder. And you can add dirt to that. So it just keeps the dirt in one place for your raised bed garden. Have you experimented with that?
Changing the machine, and I don't have a saw, so I just use the tires as is around my fruit trees.
Okay.
And I find
how does it work?
Fine. It works just fine. Because we have a canine crew here. They are our security patrol from various predators that might want to be lurking around the place, and and they also, but they sometimes they just want to go and play. They just want to run around, and they just, go mad and bark at each other and chase the birds through the trees. And they don't always look where they're going, but they're more likely to see a tire than a tree. And so they're less likely to accidentally bump into a tree if it has a tire around it. And, and it also, what I noticed on my own was if you leave a car tire out in the middle of the paddock, out in the middle of your field, over the winter, by the time that spring has come, remember, we don't have snow where we are. Winter for us is the wet, green, lush time of the year, and summer's the dead time of year, because we live in an arid climate. Winter's when we get our rain. Summer is very common for us to go months at a time without any rain at all. There will be grass growing in the center of that tire, which is twice as tall as any of the grass surrounding, because the tire itself acts as a catchment and channels water into. This is when it still has its tire wall. Okay, I think what happens is the rain falls on the tire wall and channels it into the center, and so that's another advantage, is that the tire actually helps to water the tree. If you just put the tire around the tree as is, and when the tree gets to a certain size, of course you want to remove the tire. Okay, probably, otherwise you're going to have a tree that ends up getting strangled by the tire. You're going to have to cut it off. Okay. But, yeah, this is it about permaculture. Tires are generally regarded as being a waste product, but just about every permaculturist I know cannot get enough car tires. And they are also an immensely useful building material. You get them, once again, without removing the tire wall. Okay, if you did remove the tire wall, you could actually put the tire wall as a tree guard as well, to help to keep weeds away from the base of a tree. Okay, and to, once again, to provide a catchment so that the water, when it drips onto when the rain drips onto the tire wall, channels it in towards the tree. Okay, I've seen that, and that works well as well. But like I say, it works better as a guard when you have the tread and then the tire wall, and it's all in one piece and it's all attached. It's less work. And a big part of permaculture is if something works and it's a less work way of doing something, you do things in a less work way. You don't have to cut the tread off, okay, for it to work. And if you want to do that, that's fine. And the other thing is tire treads are a useful resource in their own right, because I've seen people roof their houses in tire tread. It's marvelous stuff. And I've seen people make shoes out of it. You know, it's just absolutely marvelous. And there's a zillion and one uses for a tire tread. But yeah, that's an example. And the other great resource that we can never seem to get enough of around here is corrugated sheet metal. And once again, it's something that tends to be on the junk end of most people's radar. You know, it lies around, it's, you know, full of holes, can't use it for anything else, blah, blah, blah. But in a permaculture setting, it has 1,001 uses. And you can set up a livestock shelter in the field, and you can hammer sheets of sheet metal across it. You can put a gutter on it, and it can help to actually water your livestock with rainwater. You know, and you can set up a catchment system. What was that, sorry?
No question about it. No question about what you're saying. We have repurposed sheet metal, and we got it in Arkansas. What was happening is the Tyson Corporation encouraged people to have chickens and be chicken farmers. So they'd have these 350 to 400 foot long barns made out of that corrugated sheet metal. You're talking about galvanized sheet metal. And something happened to the business. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but farm after farm after farm was taking down these barns and selling them for scrap metal almost. And so we bought a 120-foot section of one of these 400-foot long barns. So we bought the used material and built a barn with it. And so our barn is 40 feet by 120 feet long, and it works really well. And in the evening, the barn metal gets cool. The moisture in the air condenses on the roof material. It runs down to the low point and drips, 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 drips. We are going to put some gutters on there. We're going to catch that water and divert it to other purposes. Exactly what you're talking about. As a matter of fact, there's so much water that drips down. I'm not talking about rainy days. I'm just talking about a day, any day that doesn't have rain. Water's going to, water will condense on that barn roof because it's colder than the air, and it will just find the lowest point and drip. And if you have a gutter there, I'll bet you on a non-rainy day, we'd get at least a gallon of water minimum on a non-rainy day just in condensation. Actually, I think it's going to be way more than that. Probably several gallons of water a day. And I would think that if you have an area that you want to grow mushrooms and you need some moisture, that's the place to grow mushrooms without water. Yeah. Because they're going to be watered all the time. You could
probably, if you, in your climate, you would need to hothouse them during the winter. But if you hothouse them during the winter, you could have mushrooms all year round. You absolutely could. But the thing is, like another example from our own place, we have a mud brick house, and it has a sheet metal roof, and that's where all of our drinking water comes from, is our sheet metal roof. And we live in a low rainfall area. In a bad year, we might get less than 200 millimeters of rain in a bad year. In a really, really good year for us is 800 millimeters. That's probably, 300 millimetres is 12 inches. So 12, 24, maybe 30 inches of rain in a good year. That's a fantastic year for us. I don't know how that compares to where you are. I don't know what your annual rainfall or condensation is. But our average year is 400 millimetres of rain. That's the average. And we collect all of our drinking water off our roof catchment, which is a sheet metal roof. And, we've never run out of rainwater. I've got 10,000 gallons of storage, and the winter is over, and our rainwater storage is probably just over 3/4 full. So we will have enough rain stored as rainwater storage to see us through the summer, even if we get no rain at all for 30 weeks. We'll be fine. We will have, the tanks will be full again by the end of next winter. And it's been a very, very bad winter here. We've probably had about 200 millimetres of rain, and yet our tanks are 3/4 full.
We'll be right back. Class, Guineith Isaacs is with us, and if you'd like more information about her, there's a link on the website, usaprepares.com, usaprepares.com. Click on the Instructors tab. Guineith, headlines, dailymail.co.uk. Hurricane Michael strengthens to a Category 4 and will hit Florida with 150-mile-an-hour winds this afternoon. Officials warn worst storm in living memory to hit the region with 375,000 people. 375,000 people ordered to evacuate now. Told it's too late to run. Okay. Hurricane Michael strengthened to a Category 4 storm with winds up to 150 miles an hour on Wednesday. More than 375 people in 22 Florida counties were under evacuation orders and advisories. But Governor Rick Scott warned Wednesday morning it was too late to evacuate and urged people to seek refuge immediately. Michael is expected to make landfall on the Florida Panhandle by Wednesday afternoon. It's forecasted to bring 150-mile-an-hour winds and up to a foot of rain and a life-threatening storm surge of up to 14 feet. Meteorologists said it has the potential to become one of the worst storms in the history of the region. Multiple airports were closed in Florida, and on Wednesday, more than 453 flights have been canceled. President Donald Trump has declared a state of emergency for the entire state of Florida. Florida Senator Marco Rubio warned anyone in the path of the storm surge, you're going to die. That's what the headlines all say. And why am I saying this? Because you need to take control of your own destiny. Do not be a victim of the supply chain. Grow your own. Grow your own. Yeah. Yes, do you agree?
Although with a storm of that magnitude, it's going to wipe out people's gardens.
Absolutely. But the point is, get out of the way. Don't live there. Yeah. Don't live in a place that's been hammered and hammered and hammered. Live in a place where it's a little safer. You move, right?
Yeah. It's like this. If you go to traditional tribal areas in Indonesia, none of them live near the coast. Okay? All of them live up in the forest. And the reason why they say it, okay, this is quoting their culture, okay? They say, if we live near the coast, the sea gods get angry with us. And they make the sea invade the land, and they sweep us away. That's in their culture, in their context, you know. I'm not saying that sea gods are doing this or anything like that, so nobody gets it. I'm telling you what their culture teaches, but I think that that's generally good advice, is that nobody should be living near the coast, okay? Coastal geomorphology is what it's called. Coasts are very, very unstable. They are subject to tsunamis, they're subject to storm surges, they're subject to cyclones coming in and just flooding the place. There's just so many different things that can happen on a coastline. You should not be living near the coast. It's probably too late to move to high ground now, okay? But you need to move to high ground if you can, because these storm surges come in. It could be 30 feet of water across the top of your house. That's entirely conceivable. These sort of storm surges, they really are. They're like a tsunami, okay? And, like I say, it's just a really, really bad idea. Nobody should be living near the coast. Most coastal areas, they have a hillside backing them, okay? That hillside is the place to live, because at least the water has a chance to drain away. Yeah. And that's, by the way, that's all a part of permaculture too. It's intelligently fighting the place where you live.
Yes, and using nature. And using nature on your side rather than fighting nature.
Yeah. That's right.
Gwyneth,
Absolutely.
It's always delightful chatting with you on the radio. And I'm so sorry that I couldn't talk to you that one day. I was under the hood and I sliced myself up and I was bleeding and I just had to go take care of my wounds. Gwyneth, it's great broadcasting with you. Thanks so much for being with us.